What is good? We're back. We got probably one of the last pods of the year here, man. Been a good year over at the FFD. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be all in your ears, all 2025 coming at you hot and heavy like Elaine's boyfriend. The playoffs, by the time you're hearing this, might even be done, or you're in the championship round. And now you're transitioning to, hey, I got these picks. What do I do with them? How are they valued? So that's kind of what we're going to start talking about today. We're going to look at the higher end first round picks, right? 1-1 through kind of 1-4, 1-6-ish range. And, you know, undecided on a lot of those, but we know the 1-1 is Jeanty. So we'll kind of price check that, and we'll price check these as well. But we want to kind of see what that's worth, how to use it, how to maybe acquire it, all those kind of things of gearing up for the offseason, talking about. And we'll start off with this show, just the high end picks, because it's fun to talk about. And we can get a little, you know, who would you rather do, and price check kind of the 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, but mainly want to talk about how you value them and how to use them and when to use them and when to acquire them. So, you know, we could start the show off by talking about Jeanty, who I think probably should have won the Heisman, had a great year. If you look at the Reggie Bush Heisman stuff, like, he was far and away on a lot of categories from where Reggie Bush was. Obviously, Travis Hunter did something that we'd say unicorn a lot, but that's truly a unicorn, what he just did. And I'm not taking anything away from him, but like pretty good at both things, maybe not outstanding at one. And maybe that's blasphemous for some, but you know, nobody knows what he's going to play, but Jeanty was just absolutely outstanding at his one thing.
Sure.
And probably didn't even play for however many quarters it was, you know.
He was 100 and something yards shy of Barry Sanders' record, and he missed 8 quarters of football because they've been a blowout, you know, over the course of the season, where he didn't play the fourth quarter of this game, didn't play the fourth quarter of this game, maybe didn't play the third and fourth quarter of that game. You know, that's how they added up those quarters.
And, you know, the number one team, the favorite to win the championship early on in the season, Jeanty and Boise State had them boys on the run, with their backs up against the wall. Had to come in there and focus in and have some big plays to come away with that one. I don't remember exactly how that one played out at the end, but I feel like something happened to really turn the tide there near the end of it. But let's start off talking about the 1-1. And I think in this case, whatever league it is, Superflex, tight end premium, one quarterback, I think Jeanty is pretty much going to be that guy this year, because the quarterbacks aren't overwhelming. And obviously, as we go down the line here of the offseason, we'll start to figure out what this class is, kind of start placing guys, and value of 1-1 through 1-12 will change. I would say that typically 1-4 through 1-1 are pretty strong in most classes, and sometimes a 1-6. But let's start off with 1-1, and we'll get to all that chatter that I'm kind of talking about right now. But let's start with the 1-1. Let's start with Jeanty, and let's go and just kind of figure out right now, beginning of the offseason, essentially, where we're valuing somebody like Jeanty. So Nico Collins or Ashton Jeanty, Big Co.
Wow, I can't believe you started with Nico.
Had to. I'm just going right for the heartstrings.
I'm literally brainstorming today, and I was like, I wonder who's going to throw out there and at what point we get to somebody like Nico. Because here's the thing, like, at this point, there's zero gamble in Nico Collins. You could already almost argue there's zero gamble in Jeanty. But, you know, even this past week, the Texans could barely get anything going on offense. Nico Collins only has, you know, a couple yards receiving, but 2 catches with 2 touchdowns. He is the offense for the Texans, and we all assume that things will get right, and there's brighter days in CJ Stroud's future. So if you were to take Jeanty over Nico Collins, that is a gamble. Like, for instance, Saquon Barkley started his career outrageous. The first carry of his preseason game went for 40 yards in his rookie season. The first time he touched the ball as an NFL, rookie, he went for 40 yards in preseason. We saw the difference between, we've seen it this year. You go from the Giants, you go to the Eagles in a good situation, and situation usually for rookies is more about, like quarterbacks and wide receivers. There's plenty of rookie running backs that come into the league. Good team, bad team, medium team, doesn't matter. And if they're good, they can make some hay and fantasy points. The point is, if Jeanty gets drafted to a not great situation, he could still be really good for fantasy football and have plenty of room for growth. But Nico Collins is like an alpha's alpha at this point, and we're running out of alphas in the league. There's a lot of really good receivers running around, but only so many those top dogs, that's a really heck of a coin flip situation for me. The fun part is taking Jeanty. There's no doubt about it. He's electric. He's captivating. He stole college football this year, really. I mean, even as awesome as Travis Hunter was, I don't need to see Travis Hunter highlights.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not looking for Travis Hunter highlights. I'm looking to see when Jeanty touches the ball. So I think it's kind of surprising, if you will, that we've got a running back that's this exciting, that close to like the Bijan years. You know, it's only been 2 years and Bijan stole our hearts. And, you know, but Bijan was the first to take our hearts the way Barkley did, kind of thing. And I just think Jeanty's been so much fun. That's a long way to say I got a hard time taking him over Nico Collins. I don't disagree with it. If somebody wants to take Jeanty in a startup or value it, if you had the 1-1 and you could trade that 1-1,
you would trade the 1-1 right now for Nico Collins.
Probably not.
Yeah, me neither. I'm
taking Jeanty. How could you not? It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Nico Collins is so
and I just
fantastic, and he scores fantasy points in bunches. I think Jeanty is young, and he's the new shiny object, and his value is, especially before he goes. He's got a long way to go, and he's not even in the NFL yet.
Right.
As far as value going up.
Right. For me, there's almost no bust factor in Jeanty, like what he is, how he's playing. You know, obviously the place that he goes could obviously have a landing spot where he gets drafted, could obviously will have a big impact on what he is, but you could still be on a bad team and still score a lot of points. Right.
Absolutely.
Even when Bijan isn't exactly Bijan right off the rip, the value stays really strong. Elite running back. There ain't but 3 names we can list right now that you would even think about taking over Jeanty in the running backs, and that's Breece Hall, Gibbs, and Bijan, right? Everybody else, Saquon's too old. Achane, right. Give me Jeanty, all day long.
And I guarantee right this minute, because of the way we are and a lack of patience, if you are starting if you had a rookie draft or if you were in a startup and you either could trade the pick or you had to make a pick at a startup, I guarantee you 8 out of 10 people will take Jeanty over Breece Hall in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Because the Jets had a down year and Breece Hall is already 24. And like he just didn't crush. And, you know, Breece Hall did not have the season that we wanted him to have after the way he played the year after. You know, he came back from the knee injury and the Jets were supposed to be awesome this year and they weren't. And Breece Hall didn't do what we wanted him to do. So I can definitely see like 8 out of 10 people taking Jeanty over Breece Hall right now.
I think it's 10 out of 10. I think Jeanty's already valued over Breece and just reaction. And listen, I'm because of like, I just feel very strongly and very good about him. You know, I don't know if there's probably not that many situations that are all that much worse than the Jets anyway. Breece has put up big numbers on the Jets. Had a bit of a weird year. The Jets had a Jetsian year. I think Breece was still really good at throughout big stretches of this season and just kind of cooled off, maybe a little banged up, and, you know, excellent receiver. It's tight there. I'm automatically probably putting Jeanty in kind of tier 1 with those running backs, and I may take him over Breece Hall at this point. How about Gibbs or Jeanty?
Hey guys, a quick reminder to head over to patreon.com/the FF Dynasty to sign up for a free membership to get access to the free Discord channel. Or hit your boys with the $5 holler and get access to extra shows, mock drafts, roster reviews, ADP, and player pages. All for your pleasure.
Man, Gibbs on the Lions, if David Montgomery were not there, I think that's hard to take anybody over Gibbs on the Lions if David Montgomery's not there. I said everything I said about Nico Collins and the safety of a top dog wide receiver, and what if Jeanty steps on the field and he's breaking these runs what if Genty's Chris Johnson? You know, just like, what if he's able to take
way bigger than Chris Johnson?
But I'm saying, like, I mean, I know for a fact, you know all about Chris. We've been playing fantasy together for 20 years. So I know you remember those prime years of Chris Johnson, where every time he touched the ball, it was a touchdown. And so, like, if you had Chris Johnson and any other player scoring points that week, you were probably winning, because Chris Johnson he was putting up 30 a week. And he was basically, you know, Christian McCaffrey without the catches, but the more often long run touchdowns. So Jeanty's long run touchdowns is what we like. if he like was just this fantastic running back and had a long run every once in a while, but he couldn't be tackled on 3rd and short, and he was the best goal line back in the history of college football, that would be fun and all. But these 70-yard runs consistently, that is what we cannot get enough of.
Yeah.
When you're breaking long runs to the house all the time, dude, that's football. That's like, it's the hardest thing to do in football. It's so much easier to complete a long pass than it is to break a long run. And when somebody's out there breaking long runs consistently, we cannot get enough of it.
Yeah.
So I get it. I can understand everything I said about Nico and then be like, yeah, give me Jeanty.
Yeah.
I think it's too much fun.
I'm probably going to take Jeanty over Gibbs because there's a really, I think the circumstance with Gibbs is good and he produces fantasy points even being in the same circumstance. And maybe if he was in a different circumstance, maybe he wouldn't be quite as good. Maybe he needs somebody like a Monty in his life to keep him healthy and rolling. I don't know. There's no way to know that because we don't see it. We're about to find out here through the back end of this season what it looks like with kind of just Gibbs being the guy.
Gibbs up to RB2 in scoring, by the way.
It's probably going to be awesome, right? So
only behind Mr. Barkley.
How about Brock Bowers or Jeanty?
Boy, you going right after my guys. What did you just write down? All of Corey's favorite guys?
I'm just writing, hot names. Let's see. Let's just see. We're in it. We're in the beginning of things. Let's just kind of hammering home what the value of 1-1 is. And these guys are all really good, proven players. And a lot of the times we'll come on here, especially from like mine, yours, Jason's side of things. We'll err on the side of the known that can really benefit you. And I'd probably say 60% of the time it does. And then 40% of the time bites you in the ass a little bit because you're like, damn, that could have been good. But you're almost never like, oh, I traded for this known and now he busted, right? So you're safeguarding yourself a little bit.
Exactly, which is the Nico Collins part of that conversation. I would say if it's non-tight end premium and just if your PPR and your tight end scored the same way that your wide receivers are, I'd say it's kind of easily just to say go Jeanty there. Once you go tight end premium and you get another, if you got 1.5 and every time if you catch 100 passes, like literally Brock Bowers catch 100 balls this year, that's like a wide receiver catching 150 because you get the extra bonus, right? So once you get up to once you get to 1.5 tight end scoring, to me, Brock Bowers in tight end premium is basically like going back and being able to get Travis Kelce 5 years ago. And that's all I've been wanting. I've been saying that for 2 years now. If you could go back in 5 years ago and I could pick any player and the results are the exact same, the biggest difference maker has been Travis Kelce. Mm-hmm. So if you give me a chance to get Brock Bowers right now on tight end premium, I'm not taking many people over him. So if it's 1.5 and you add in the running backs get hurt a little bit more often factor of it all, I'll take Bowers and tight end premium. And obviously anything greater than that, 2-point tight end premium. Bowers is my 1-1 overall, and Superflex included. So I'll take Bowers and 1.5 because I'm trying to get Travis Kelce for the next 8 years. But if it's regular PPR scoring and he doesn't get the extra bonus, I'll take Jeanty and bump Bowers down.
Yeah. All right. So CJ Stroud or Jordan Love? I think it's Love for me right now.
Man, I do too, bro. I'm trying to figure out how to say CJ Stroud. I'm trying to.
Okay. But so Jeanty or Stroud?
In Superflex?
Superflex.
Obviously, it has to be a Superflex question.
Yeah.
Jeanty or Stroud and Superflex. Man, you came hot. You're prepared, bro. You came hot and heavy with these questions. Stroud.
So I asked, obviously last year that we wouldn't be able to do this. Stroud's slumping, and this is usually a time to come in here and buy that. So if you could trade the 1-1 in Superflex and get Stroud for the 1-1, you would do that. Obviously, you're probably trying to squeeze more out of that, but just trying to talk in general senses here.
Great way, great frame, great reframe of the question, because right now Stroud is like QB 19 or worse. Like he's if he's averaging like 14 or 15 points a game, he can't complete a pass to anybody not named Nico Collins. And by the way, Nico Collins missed a month. I don't think he completed one pass while Nico was out. They've been horrible. But like Bobby Slowick,
I checked the facts. He completed a pass.
I don't think so. You can go back and watch the games.
Yeah.
Bobby Slowick hasn't been able to do. All of a sudden, he's not a great name anymore. Like he lost a little bit of his next salary. not so.
Yeah.
His next
shout out to Big D. He was out on Slowick last season. He thought maybe you see some regression from Slowick. So
he called it, and when he said it, like I
hated it. I
hated it too.
What the fuck are you watching?
I hated it too, but he was right. Good job, Big D. Yeah, so agreed. You could obviously get some extra right now with CJ Stroud. If you traded the 1-1 in Superflex, taken down, if you get CJ Stroud and passed up on Jeanty, you would, and should be getting extra on top of that. And for what kind of extra is that? A first round pick, a definite starter, a top 24 wide receiver. Nobody's going to give you a top 5 wide receiver, but like, can you get a every week, whoever that list of wide receivers are that are, wide receiver like 18 every week. So no matter what, he should be in your lineup. And, I'm not talking about the Devontae Adams and the Cortland Suttons of the world, the old guys, but like, greater than Zay Flowers kind of guy. Give me JSN and CJ Stroud for Jeanty if I can catch the ultimate hype train on the running back right now, because 12 months ago to the day, like CJ Stroud was the hottest thing going, right? And it just, things hadn't worked out.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good segue into, kind of the next part of the question. And we might throw the 1-2 and the 1-3 up in this conversation and throw it up against some stuff, but I think those are a little more unknown at this moment, right? Everybody knows Jeanty and has an idea that he's pretty much the 101. I don't know how much is going to change at this point, right? People like Ted McMillan. There's some other wide receivers. I don't know exactly where the quarterbacks are going to fall. Is it Ted McMillan and then Shador and Ward conversation coming in here? Is there going to be some other wide receivers, Luther Burden or the Ole Miss guy? I'm drawing a blank on his name, or plenty of wide receivers, plenty of good running backs to, as this thing goes on, to make the case. And that's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning of this, is that we'll start to sort out and figure out the value will get chopped up a little bit more through values of ranges of picks. And we'll kind of dial that in more and more as this process goes on. And inevitably at some point, somebody's going to tell you that this class stinks because they're fatigued of it. And, those picks suck. But like, the way to value that top pick and how to use it. And then, speaking to the point of like also acquiring first round picks, and it doesn't need to be the 101, because the 101 is really going to be a tough one to acquire in general, right? This year
for sure.
Typically always, it's really hard to pry from somebody to get the one. You almost need the 102 to get the 101. Like, you might be able to.
Well said. I think the last time I was able to get a 1-1 without giving up everything that I had was like the Josh Jacobs year. Yeah. And I was able to get up in there and grab Josh Jacobs and I didn't break the bank doing it. But outside of that, the 1-1 is ridiculous.
Right. And so I think, me and Austin just went back through all these last couple classes in one of the last shows. And, while 1-1's usually pretty coveted and hard to get, like 1-1 through 1-4 or even 1-6 too, like it's been like pretty solid through all of the last draft classes. Like you've been able to get a really, you might pick the wrong guy essentially for whatever reason, but like the talent through 1-1 through 1-6, if you picked, you might have to wait a year like JSN or somebody, but they didn't bust and weren't like terribly disappointing. Like maybe Bryce Young would have been, an example.
Yeah, like a Quentin Johnston made you real mad last year.
But he wasn't, at least anybody that we were fucking with, 106. That was like 109, right?
True. Rookie season this year is going to be insane just based on last year, like all the way up into the early second round, legit stars, Bo Nix, we're about to see Penix this week. You throw in the questionable quarterbacks that were the back end, the guys that weren't even like the Jaden Daniels that had made his way to the top. And, obviously the Caleb Williams and stuff and the Drake Mays, but we've got 5 or hopefully 6 quarterbacks that have been good to very good. We'll see Penix coming up, but all of the rookie quarterbacks have been good in their own ways. And, last year, Superflex, it was like that 1-7 was a sweet spot. And I remember saying early on in the process, I was like, wait, guys, we're about to watch your 1-9 really blow up. And then, of course, after the draft, we had all the high end, the quarterbacks were taken so high and this and that. And now all of a sudden you got, you were at 2-2 feeling fantastic last year. You know,
Yeah,
so I just feel like
you had Brian Thomas at 107 in some drafts. Ladd McConkey, JJ McCarthy, if he drafted late, might have started falling down a little bit,
right.
or Penix and McCarthy or Penix and Bo Nix were certainly available at that point. And
for the late drafts, you had that whole crew. Obviously, you know, JJ got hurt, but when you had the late drafts, you had the Jalen Wright screams up in there, and he starts to be a first round pick in one quarterback leagues and stuff like that. It was so
the way that this draft's kind of breaking down from where I'm at right now, and we're not deep into it by any means, but a lot of good running backs, right? There's going to be 5 or 6 running backs that people are going to be probably pretty excited about. And then there's going to be guys on the outside who are excited about some of those other guys, right?
Right.
The high end wide receivers are good. I think it kind of like middles out a little bit, but then I think there's going to be like this wave of tight ends that gets kind of hot. You have Loveland and Warren from Michigan and Penn State who are going to get hot. And then there's 2 or 3 other guys that are kind of getting talked up right now. And we'll see kind of how that process plays out. So, you know, me and Austin have been doing mocks, and there's some, you know, there's going to be, I think, we'll see who goes back, and that's always a factor of this. But like, I think there's going to be some more quarterbacks that get brought in, and there'll be second round picks, which is kind of nice to be able to take shots on quarterbacks in the second round. Doesn't feel as you know, must that it hits. But you know, I guess speak to the fact of right now is probably one of the better times to there's probably phases of acquiring picks, but now is good a time as any to try to acquire picks, because it's not as in people's mind of the rookie draft and coming up. And, you know, the closer we get, the hotter and more pricey it's going to get. So I think right now you can approach some rookie picks. If people are still being active, it's not a terrible time to go after them. And then like, kind of what's your strategy of valuing those first round picks, and how do you go about trying to acquire them, or just kind of what's your first worth to you, and how do you go after them if you're going after them?
Well, I think first of all, right this minute, if you are in a dynasty league that allows trading, now's a great time to get them. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like last week before the games, I traded in one league. I traded my first round this year coming up and my first round next year on a win now team. I do have 2 other picks in that league that were earlier than mine. So I had 3 firsts, and I gave away mine, which would have been the latest, and my following year's pick. So I traded 2 first round picks in one league trying to win a championship and get better. And then in another league, I gave my first round pick straight up this year for Josh Jacobs in a team where I was hot and needed running back help. So now's a really good time to get them compared to other times in the year, because somebody like me, if I'm riding in a hot team and I'm like, all right, well, I'm already in the playoffs, so no matter what, this is the 1-7 or later. If you're in a league with there is a trade deadline or what have you, then that's obviously that takes that out of play for you. But I personally spent some first round picks this week. Spent a lot of time last week trying to work and massage deals to figure out what I was doing. So it's a time whether you're the buyer or the seller, because obviously I was the buyer buying players and selling my first round picks. So you got a team that wasn't looking so hot, and he got rid of a Josh Jacobs and got a first round pick. Well, will that work out well for him? We shall see. Hopefully, if he picks a really good player, it'll work out for him. And, you know, I think it's going to work out for me too. Later in the season is a dynamic there, because let's say you have let's back up like 3 weeks ago and you're in week 9, week 10 or whatever, week 11, even if you have a trade deadline, it may not have executed yet. You may have 2 or 3 teams in your league already that are kind of checked out. Mm-hmm. You know, so because this is a theory and not really a theory, but this is a practice that I talk about and have talked about with you on the show many times. It's like, you know, when and where to strike. And this season, as I'm have a handful of teams that are getting hot going into the playoffs, and I'm looking around for trade partners, I'm realizing this season, and I guess, you know, life gets busy for everybody and every league is different, but multiple times I'm like, I can't even get these people to respond to me.
Yeah.
You know, so it can be a timing issue as far as like how to value them. I've said it before, and I've, especially the last couple of years, it's gotten bigger and bigger. There's more talent. There is the rookie fever, to me, feels stronger. And maybe because of the way things have developed in this community, and Dynasty's getting more and more popular and it's covered high. You know, there's you can't go anywhere on Twitter if you're looking for it without stumbling over rookie this, rookie that. This is my top 5 rankings on this position or ranking, so I just feel like there's more information to be gathered for dynasty players. It's coming at you from every angle. The rookie fever gets at a higher pitch. And like, I felt it in the last 2 years than I, trailing 10 years to that, I felt like it was kind of an even keel. Rookie fever is always fun. And there was a build up to the rookie draft, and draft picks are worth something, obviously. But for like 10 years, for 10 years in a row, it felt like it was flat, and for like the last 2 years, I just feel like it has just really taken off. And so that being said, I value my rookie picks more than I used to. And I value other people's rookie picks more than I used to, especially if you can find that team that thinks he's good and he's not that good, And so you can get a pick away from a team who is a pretender.
It's a really safe insurance policy to have the pick because it's guaranteed to continue to go up in value. And then, there's definitely certain times where people are more vulnerable to trading picks as the cycle kind of moves on. In rookie drafts is one of those times where people are going to be active in trading, but then like right now leading up to it, there's going to be a few times where, hey, there's some volatility. People are a little more active, so you can kind of try to make those moves, right? So
and so if somebody has right now in your dynasty league, we're in the playoffs and we get that game everybody's watching, and this dude goes off and hits 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. That's the time, that's the kind of time where you say, and I'm going to use Barkley. Perfect example right now is Barkley and CMC, if they were both healthy and not hurt, right? Whoever goes out and blows up this week in the playoffs, and it's like that magnified game, and it's, the Saturday night game in the playoffs, and that's the only game everybody's watching. Christian McCaffrey goes out there and gets 150 total yards and 3 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley doesn't do so hot. Maybe I'm getting a really good chunk to switch from this player to that player, and I give up, I give you Christian McCaffrey in a 2nd round pick, you give me Saquon Barkley in a 1st. There you go. I got the same exact player, and I picked up a 1st. I gave away a 2nd trying to do it. Does it work like that? Is it that easy? No, but that's just like an example, the mindset of saying, and of course, like a Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, when they have a big game, you expect them to do it more often. It's not like the one off. One guy scores 3 touchdowns, he'll never find his end zone again. Yeah. But Chase when you have those, the 5 touchdown game, and 4 or 5 touchdowns, when you have a big game, that's a way to find a draft pick. That's a way to find an extra 1st. The easiest way to do it is coming in the startup draft, to be able to trade back in the startup draft in certain tiers where you're like, I like these next 20 players, right? And be able to trade. The easiest way to come out of a startup draft with 2 or 3 first round picks. Outside of that, it gets a little trickier.
Yeah, and I would say sort of, general rule of thumb kind of for me, and it's not always true. There's certainly, like I said, there's times ebb and flow of value of rookie picks throughout the cycle here, but trying to attack, if you want the rookies, to attack the picks now and try to get as many of them as you can. Obviously, you've been trying to do that all season if you're kind of the rebuilder. But then, like I said, as we get to the in draft where it's actually the draft is taking place, around that area is when you can really take advantage of rookie fever and go the opposite way with those picks and acquire the veterans. So, the acquisitions of the veterans with the picks comes a little later for me, and acquiring the picks comes a little earlier in the cycle. Not that I'm not trying to always acquire them if I can, and if people are loosening their grips because whoever they choose to listen to. Like if I feel like the public out there right now is getting, and I see it all over Twitter, and I feel like there's an echo chamber going of, oh, well, after this pick, the guys suck or whatever. Yeah. And I'm doing my own shit. And I'm like, well, after that guy, there's, Devin Neal and there's this guy and that guy, and I like all those guys. I think they're all great. And so I'll go start exploring whether or not those picks are cheap after, like you said, 1.7 was the cutoff line, and you were like, oh, wait a couple of weeks, and 109 is going to be the cutoff. And then, where everyone sees this big drop off, and like,
right.
We kind of, obviously, we got to 202 in a lot of cases if you drafted correctly, where there wasn't that big of a drop off. I mean, obviously there's some tiers, but like you want kind of a lot of those guys.
Well, that happened a lot of times. If I own a clock at 110 or 111, I'm trying to move back 2 or 3 spots. I got that in multiple drafts last year. Was like, well, I like 4 guys here. I don't want to pay to move up.
Right.
I like that. I got them all valued all the same. And that happened multiple times.
Right. So, to end this pod here, we could kind of take, the thing is where we're at right now, we don't have a name value necessarily. And I think some people would say Ted McMillan is the 2. I'm not certain of that just yet.
If I'm looking at Twitter,
it's going to be there.
Caleb Johnson is just like roaring through Twitter right now.
People like him as the RB2. For sure, but there's some really good ones there. You got Judkins and Henderson there as well, and I'm drawing. I don't have a list of these guys in front of me at the moment, but Caleb Johnson, that we just named 4 or 5 running backs that people are all really, really, gonna like. And then there was guys like Ollie Gordon, who last year people had him as the RB1 coming in.
Exactly.
Gonna be a lot of really fun running back discussions, and I think there'll be 2 or 3, maybe 4 wide receivers that jump up into this mix. But I think by the end of it, we're going to be talking about a lot of running backs to start this thing off. So, as far as the 1-2 and the 1-3 and the 1-4 area, like not typically right now quite as bullish as saying like, hey, 1-2 right now, you'd trade the 1-2 for Nico Collins at this point. Right.
Yeah,
like
definitely not.
Exactly. Nearly as
I gotta find. I need to know more about. I need to know more about Caleb Johnson. I need to know more about Ollie Gordon. I need to know more about those running backs. Obviously, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders need to go through the process. Landing spot, that's going to matter a lot for the quarterbacks. We think that there's 4 or 5 really, really solid running backs and solid to great running backs, and that would be really good for our dynasty teams.
If you had the 102 right now, would you be down to send that 102 for Marv?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah,
I think the 102 looks great on paper.
You might be able to squeeze something different out of it because people are down on them. So I was just kind of using that as there's a last year's home run number 1 for a lot of people, and maybe not in super flex. Maybe you would have taken Caleb, but I think the grip has loosened, and I think there's going to be opportunities to buy the guys who were just guys like Marvin Harrison who didn't crush. And be able to buy those, I think you're going to be able to use a 106, 108, 109 to buy Roma Dunze if you want to, right? So you can kind of
that's a trade. I'll make. That's a great trade. I'll make that right now. Everything I just said about the rookie picks, they're going to get more valuable from here, but I do think at talking to you that right this second, outside of the 1-1, I think the 1-2, 1-3, 1-4 is cheaper today than it was this time last year. As far as what they're valued at now, because this time last year, we already knew about Caleb and Marvin Harrison, and Jaden Daniels was having the most electric year, and Drake May, we knew about Drake May, and that kind of,
Roma Dunze was, crushing and a big name, right? Malik Neighbors started to creep in there a little later. Yeah.
Well, but by the time college season was over,
right?
Well, this time last year in late
we knew
December,
about Brock Bowers.
Exactly. So this time last year, we knew Brock Bowers.
Not that we don't know that this class is good and deep. I don't know that we've necessarily,
there were more established superstars last year.
And quarterbacks from the Superflex perspective.
Right. Yeah. So
at least a quarterback or 2 that people were hyped about. And not, I think Shedeur and Cam Ward are going to be good, but some people are like, they stink. I don't like them. They shouldn't be first round quarterbacks. I'm like, no, they're going to be first round quarterbacks.
Oh, for sure.
Just, who else might be, we don't quite know yet. And who's going to go back? Seems like Ewers is going to go back. Maybe Aller's going to go back. So we'll see kind of where that name cachet. So like 1-2, 1-3 area, you'd trade any of those picks with Brian Thomas, right? You'd take.
Yeah, you'd have to.
Right.
You'd have to. And that's a great, I was going to say it just a second ago when we said 1-2, when you said Marvin Harrison, like Brian Thomas is a great name to bring up in this discussion because the 102 looks fantastic on paper. Like, I don't know what process your dynasty league is in right now. It's hard to say, hey, here's the 1-2, but or to explain to somebody, hey, this is how the points.
The 1-2 might not even be next to your name yet, right?
Exactly. You might be, trust me, the way the more points are, the way the standings are, this pick right here is, you have to let's confirm with the commissioner of the league. This is the 1-2. Well, as soon as you got the 1-2 beside your name, or you can confirm that with somebody, like you'd be really doing yourself a favor to send that to Brian Thomas owners.
Yeah. How about like May or Knicks? 1-2, worth it for you there?
I would take May or Knicks for the 1-2 right now.
Okay.
I would, especially. I mean, quarterbacks go fast in Superflex, Bo. It's tough.
So
even when you think you got quarterbacks, you don't.
Yeah. And sometimes they come on back around, I mean, look at the Jared Goff saga of, there was a time where you and I were like, but we need to get rid of, this was years ago. We need to get rid of Jared Goff right now because his value's about to bottom out. And then nobody's going to fuck with Jared Goff. And now I'm like, God damn, I wish I had Jared Goff. Like,
wish we'd have kept Jared Goff. I bought Jared Goff for a 6th round pick in one quarterback league before cuts in FFPC this year. And he started every week. It was, that was an interesting conversation because I'm big on trying to get in front of a quarterback going to 0 and trade him away and get out. So, like, quarterbacks go to 0 in this league all the time. And
I mean, Baker's been there, Goff's been there, Darnold's been there.
Sam Darnold just came back around, and I got him on a handful of teams, mainly because he was the backup in 49ers last year, and I went around scooping him up everywhere because I was like, well, I don't even know if Brock Purdy's arm is going to be okay, and we haven't seen anything that says Trey Lance can stay on the field. And so Sam Darnold coming back around was huge. But yeah, if I got the 1-2 or the 1-3, I would give those for Bo Nix and Drake May easily. And yeah, and if Caleb Johnson, or whatever, if some of these cats ends up making me regret it, that's fine, But right this second, like I gotta do what I know is. Like you said, you grab and it's hard. These guys are rookie in the NFL this year, so they're like not veterans yet, but I've seen them play and I enjoy what I'm watching. And I think that there's a safety factor there. And like you said, if Caleb or if it's, I did pull up a list when you said you needed a list. If Caleb pops up or, if Ted McMillan comes out and he's an absolute monster, then yeah, I might say, I wish I'd have done that. But if I can sidestep a miss for a sure thing, I'll give up that little bit of equity sometimes when I feel like the decision is there to be made, and everybody's different. Everybody's going to make their own different calculations. But in my mind, I can do some gambling now, but every once in a while I'm like, I can make up the margin somewhere else. Let me not blow this pick, let me not blow this pick. Yeah. So, and it's worked plenty, and it's backfired here and there. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So we did these 2 mocks that were I think we did a show about them at some point, probably around the Thanksgiving area. And just to give you a reference of startup cost right now, and we're talking about Bo Nix and Drake May. Drake May was 3.3 average, Bo Nix 3.7 average, and we're talking 1-2, 1-3, 1-4 kind of picks in there already, right?
Right.
Just to kind of give you an idea where those guys would be in a startup. All right, Big Co, anything else before we get out of here on this topic?
Oh, right in a second. I'm good.
All right. Well, we'll be doing plenty more of this. We're going to be putting once these picks get names, we'll be putting them up with multiple different guests and multiple different times this year because the pendulum swings all over the place of who you're excited about. And it's a fun way to talk about value and talk about these guys. So be sure to keep it locked and loaded. Subscribed if you haven't already. Give us a 5-star review. If you haven't done so, what a bozo you are. Hook your boys up. Hook your boys up. We got a Patreon $5 holler. We got a free Patreon Discord action. Lots of good extra stuff over there. And throughout all the off season, we'll be adding more and more stuff, doing a ton of drafts and making our own ADP. So come join us over there. Just support your boys. Put a lot of time and effort in. So every little bit helps. 5-star reviews or $5 holler, whichever you prefer. Working on a new shop with some new stuff. So we'll get that your way. But gear's looking good. Can't wait to share that with you guys. So we'll be throwing some gear your way. Another way to support the team and kind of wear your boys around because that logo be looking good on them shirts. All right. Until next time, I'm Casey. That's Big Co. We're the FF Dynasty. Peace.
Later.